You are standing at the edge of a burning forest. Lightning struck an hour ago. The trees are screaming with heat. Every animal for miles is running away from the flames. Every animal except one. One creature stops, turns around, and walks toward the fire. That creature is your ancestor, and what they did next changed the entire trajectory of human history. For most of human existence, fire was a god. It fell from the sky. It erupted from the earth. It destroyed everything it touched. Your ancestors did not make fire. They feared it, fled it, and watched it from a distance, the way you might watch a storm roll in. Fire was not a tool. Fire was a force. But somewhere between 1.5 million and 400,000 years ago, something shifted. A hominin, possibly Homo erectus, did something no creature on Earth had ever done. They picked up a burning branch. They carried it. They kept it alive. And in doing so, they crossed a threshold that no species has ever uncrossed. Paleoanthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard University has spent decades studying what fire did to the human body and the human brain. His research, laid out in his landmark work on cooking and human evolution, argues that fire was not just a tool your ancestors discovered, it was the catalyst that built them, that built you. Here is what Wrangham found. Before fire, your ancestors were spending up to 6 hours a day chewing raw food. Roots, tubers, tough fibrous plants, raw meat. 6 hours every single day, just chewing. Their digestive tracts were massive, designed to break down food that gave up its energy slowly and painfully. They had smaller brains, larger guts, less time for anything other than eating and surviving. Then heat changed everything. Cooking breaks down the cellular walls in food before it enters your body. It pre-digests. A cooked sweet potato gives you dramatically more usable energy than a raw one of identical size. The moment your ancestors started cooking, their bodies stopped needing those enormous, energy-hungry digestive systems. The gut shrank, and the energy that had been running digestion got rerouted into the most expensive organ in the human body, the brain. You are not reading these words because your ancestors were the strongest animals. You are reading them because they were the first animals to cook dinner. But how did they actually do it? How do you go from watching fire destroy a forest to intentionally creating it yourself? The first step was capture, not creation. Researchers believe the earliest use of fire was the preservation of naturally occurring flames. Forest fires started by lightning, volcanic vents, smoldering peat. Your ancestors learned to approach these fires, to take burning material from them, and to carry that fire back to their camps. Evidence of this exists. Archaeologist Francesco Berna and his team found traces of controlled fire use in Wonderwork Cave in South Africa dating back 1 million years. Burnt animal bones, ash, the remnants of hearths used again and again in the same location. Ancient humans were tending fire long before they could make it. This is what the archaeology tells you. The first relationship your ancestors had with fire was not mastery. It was caregiving. They kept it fed. They kept it alive. They moved it when they moved. And if it went out, they had to wait, sometimes for weeks, for lightning to strike again or a lava flow to reach the surface. Fire was precious. Fire was irreplaceable. Fire was the difference between surviving the night and not. And then, at some point, someone figured out how to make it themselves. The earliest fire-making techniques were not matches or flint and steel. They were friction. A wooden spindle spun rapidly against a softer wooden board creates friction heat that ignites a tiny bundle of dry tinder. This is called the bow drill method. It is extraordinarily difficult. It requires specific woods, specific angles, specific moisture levels, and a kind of focused physical effort that takes practice to master. Anthropologist Lynn Wadley has studied ancient fire-making in South Africa and found evidence suggesting early humans understood that certain combinations of materials worked better than others. They were not randomly rubbing sticks together. They were selecting. They were experimenting. They were doing something that looks uncomfortably close to science. Another method, percussion firemaking, involves striking iron pyrite against flint to produce a spark. This technique appears in the archaeological record in Europe during the Middle Stone Age. The sparks land on a nest of dry fungi or plant fibers, catch, and glow into an ember that you then breathe into flame. Ancient humans were not discovering fire accidentally. They were engineering it, step by step, iterating, teaching each other. And here is where it gets strange. Here is where the story stops being about survival and starts being about something deeper. The campfire changed more than your diet. It changed your social life. It changed your mind. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner at the University of Utah studied the Juhwansi hunter-gatherers of southern Africa, one of the last groups whose lifestyle still echoes the ancient human way. She found a remarkable pattern. During the day, conversations around the group were mostly practical, task-based, who hunts where, what needs fixing. But at night, around the fire, the conversation transformed entirely. Around 80% of nighttime campfire talk was storytelling. Legends, histories, jokes, moral dilemmas. The fire created a social technology, a container for culture. Think about what that means. The campfire is not just where your ancestors cooked food. It is where they invented narrative. It is where they debated right and wrong. It is where they passed knowledge across generations through story. Every myth, every legend, every religion, every oral tradition in human history began in some form around a fire at night. The campfire is the first school, the first temple, the first theater. And here is the counterintuitive twist that the science reveals. Fire did not just change how humans lived. Fire changed how humans slept. Primatologist David Sampson at the University of Toronto found that modern humans sleep differently from other great apes. We have more REM sleep, the stage associated with memory consolidation, emotional processing, and creativity. Sampson argues that fire made this possible. Before fire, your ancestors slept in trees to avoid predators. Tree sleeping is light, interrupted, unstable sleep. You cannot risk falling into deep REM when you might fall out of a branch. But fire on the ground kept predators away. It allowed your ancestors to sleep deeply, safely, on the ground for the first time. And that deep sleep, night after night, restructured the sleeping brain. It deepened the REM cycles. It accelerated learning. It made memory sharper. Fire did not just feed the human brain. It let the human brain rest. You are the descendant of the creature that turned around. While every other animal ran from the burning forest, one being stopped. One being felt something that was not just fear, curiosity maybe, or hunger, or the warmth against skin that had always been cold at night. Whatever it was, that moment set in motion everything. The cooked meal, the growing brain, the campfire story, the deep, dreamful sleep, the civilization built on top of all of it. Tonight, you will probably flip on a light switch without thinking. You will cook something in a microwave in 90 seconds. You will sleep in a bed with walls around you keeping the dark at bay. None of it feels remarkable. None of it feels ancient. But all of it traces back to one ancestor, standing at the edge of a burning forest, making a choice that every other creature on Earth refused to make. They walked toward the fire. And somewhere in your cells, in the architecture of your enlarged brain, in the way your gut is smaller than any other great apes, you carry the evidence of what they chose. You were built by fire, and you have never stopped burning.